What's up everyone, Angus here back with another video for you guys, and today we're going to be talking about the ever so popular Hog Cycle decks. So why am I talking about Hog Cycle decks today? I think it's because I want to help you guys out to improve your gameplay using Hog decks ever so often. So a Hog Cycle deck is basically a deck that's extremely cheap, and the goal of using a deck like this is to outcycle your opponent's defenses so that he can't properly counter your Hog Rider every time you send it at him. So the essential elements of a Hog Rider deck, or the essential requirements rather, is the Hog Cycle deck must be within 2.8 to 3.5 elixir, guys. I repeat, it must be within 2.8 to 3.5 elixir. So the reason why you don't want your deck to be too cheap, which is below 2.8 elixir, is because you have a lot of small and cheap troops, and your opponent can take out your cheap troops very easily. Let's say with a princess, with a log, maybe with a fireball, or even arrows can take out your cheap troops very easily. So you'll be vulnerable to splash damage spells, so you don't want that to happen to you. So you want a deck that can counter everything easily and don't have that many cheap troops in it. So above 2.8 elixir and below 3.5. So why must your deck be below 3.5 elixir? So it must be below 3.5 elixir because you don't want your deck to be too expensive, and if it's too expensive you can't cycle to your Hog quick enough, and that resulting as you not making profit or not outcycling your opponent's defenses quick enough. So your opponent, let's say your opponent has an Inferno Tower and you're running a 4.0 Hog deck. So 4.0 I mean by elixir, 4.0 elixir Hog deck. So well, let's say your opponent has an Inferno Tower and you try to push him constantly, applying pressure with a Hog Rider. But since your deck is too expensive, your opponent can easily cycle back to his Hog Rider, not his Hog Rider, but his Inferno Tower really quickly, and that resulting as you not getting that much damage as you anticipated to on his tower. So it's extremely vital for you to have a Hog Cycle deck that is below 3.5 elixir. So a Hog Cycle deck, you can start using Hog Cycle decks above Arena 4, and that's because you'll be unlocking Hogs from Arena 4, and I highly suggest or encourage you guys to upgrade your Hog to level 4 before using a Hog Cycle deck or any Hog deck in general, because Hogs below that level are not generally that strong. So right now I'm going to be showing you guys a few decks from Arena 4 to Arena 9 that is featuring Hogs. So here you go, and boop, here are just the very basic decks I assume that you guys can try out to just advance in arenas. And one thing that you notice in all of these decks is all of these decks contain one defense rather that's very common, which is the Inferno Tower. So I'm using the Inferno Tower in all of these decks because I know a lot of you are facing tanks like Giant Skeleton, Giant, maybe Bowler even, or maybe just the very so popular Royal Giant, Golem, everything like that. So the Inferno Tower works extremely well against those, and it's one of the best defenses right now in the game, although they did nerf it slightly, which is kind of a bummer because it's the only defense that can help you counter Golem efficiently and Lava Hound every so often. So back into the topic, I'm getting off topic now. So the main idea of using a Hog Rider Cycle deck is to outcycle your opponent's defenses, as I just mentioned, and to catch your opponent off guard, and at the same time do chip damage. So I did the calculations. It approximately takes about 8 to 11 Hog hits to take out your opponent's tower. So doing the math like this, the 8 Hog hits to take out your opponent's tower, it all depends on how much direct damage spell usage that you have been using the entire match. So let's say you've been using Rocket a lot, you may take only like 6 Hog hits, but if you don't use direct damage at all, it will take about 10 hits. So knowing that, you guys can really plan out your attacks every so often. So now, getting into the tips of using a Hog Cycle deck. Number 1 tip, extremely important, is to always make positive elixir trades. So for example, let's say you have a princess coming at you, you wait for the lock onto your tower, use 1 elixir skeletons to counter her, and that making you profit about 2 elixirs. So that is the main idea of positive elixir trades, is to advance an elixir faster than your opponent, and eventually just build up a really big push, and that will take your opponent out because he'll be always down on elixir because you've been making all of these positive elixir trades. And yeah, that's basically it. And another example I can give you is when a minion horde comes at your base, use a zap, and that will take out the entire minion horde. Not entire minion horde, but you'll take out half of the health. And your tower can basically one-shot every single minion, and you'll be profiting 3 elixir. So that's basically the entire idea of positive elixir trades. And right now, another tip that I can give to you guys is pick push. So I'm gonna be showing you a really quick clip of Orange Juice's pick pushing guide, just the essential parts of it. So boop, here you go. This is how you pick push. Basically, you put a hog at the top left or top right corner, it doesn't matter, but it must be at the side, and put a troop beside it. It must be within 1 second before the Hog Rider starts moving, so it actually pushes the Hog Rider, and you can basically avoid defenses from either side. So I'm gonna pull up another replay for you guys really quickly. So another tip that I can give to you guys is to pair the Hog Rider with small troops to deal with the defenses quickly. So let's say your Hog Rider is about level 7 or something like that. It can be any level at all, and you pair it together with level 11 goblins. Let's say the goblins will be sneaking behind the Hog Rider, and you can basically deal a lot of damage. If people don't run a zap spell, or their zap spell is not strong enough to take out your goblins, you can basically really easily do a lot of damage if you do this correctly. So how do you do this? You want to place your Hog Rider first and a small troop behind it. It can be anything at all, maybe even a musketeer, which is but that's not really a small troop. So let's say goblins, ice spirit, skeletons, minions, and everything like that. So just basically the small troops that. And another thing that I can give to you guys is, if you place a troop that it's very fast, because the Hog Rider's movement speed is very fast, if you place a very fast troop behind a Hog Rider, what that will do is it will push the Hog Rider even faster, and it will reach the tower even quicker. So knowing that, you guys can form some really creative pushes to eventually catch your opponent off guard. So after all of that, I guess you guys already have a quick understanding of the Hog Cycle decks. Basically a very cheap deck to deal cheap damage and also catch your opponent off guard. He doesn't have the defenses to counter your Hog Rider, and that's basically it, I think. So I'm going to be speeding up this replay really quickly, and I'm going to be talking about my variation of the Hog Cycle deck. So right now, as you can see, he's using a really bulky push, which is the Golem push and everything like that. So he's using a Golem, Mega Minion, Rage Spell, which you don't really see ever so often, but I guess it's cool to see once in a while. And this game is really close actually. As you can see, my tower is all the way down to 144, but we snipe off the win. So as you guys can see, this deck is actually pretty legit. It took me all the way to 4,129 trophies, which is my all-time high, as you can see, running this deck. So right now we're going to talk about this deck. So how does this deck work? Basically, you have the Hog Rider. It's one of the best cards in the game, and it's just a very flexible card that you can use to deal chip damage on your opponent's tower. And at this level, my Hog Rider does about 289 damage to your tower at one swing. So that's a lot of damage. That's about 300 damage per swing. So moving on, we have the Ice Spirit. So why am I using the Ice Spirit? The Ice Spirit can be used in many ways, and is one of my favorite cards in the games because it's so flexible, and it's only 1 elixir. So basically you can freeze a troop for 1.5 seconds after the update, which is really a bummer. Before that it's 2 elixir, but now it's 1.5 seconds. It's 1.5 seconds, and that in the meanwhile, what you can do is you can place down your skeletons, which is only 1 elixir as well, and that can basically just lure your opponent's troops around the map. And at the same time, skeletons are very good. A lot of people think skeletons are underrated. but they are really good, and they underestimate skeletons sometimes, so you can catch them off guard or maybe surprise them with skeletons. But these two cards are basically for cycling, and as well they have their own utility. Every single card in this deck has their own utility. And right now we're going to be talking about the princess. So the princess is also one of the best cards in the game because of her splash damage and her long range. Basically, she can stand on the bridge and do damage to the tower, and if you leave her alone, like 5 or 6 hits, she can take the tower all the way down to about 18. You can take the tower down about 1000 hit points if you leave her alone and don't do anything with her, or maybe even take a tower out if you don't even care. So that's the usage of the princess. It can deal splash damage, and it's a very flexible card and cheap elixir cost as well. A good substitute for the princess is archers, because it's only 3 elixir, and the reason I like archers is because of these 3 facts. So archers, for one fact, it cannot be zapped. Secondly, it cannot be locked. Thirdly, you cannot arrow them. So the only thing you can do is fireball, lightning, and basically the rocket. But who would rocket archers? So archers are one of the best cards in the game right now. And now we're gonna be talking about the Mega Minion. So I really love the Mega Minion. I think it's a really good card. It's a glass cannon. Basically, it's a flying mini P.E.K.K.A, except it doesn't do as much damage, and people tend to leave it alone. And if you leave a Mega Minion alone, it can swing at your tower 2 times. So that does about 450 damage, which is really good, adding on chip damage to your opponent's tower if you leave them alone. So the Inferno Tower, as I just mentioned, like at the start of the video, you can see in a lot of my replays, I've been facing Lava Hounds, Golems, Giants, Royal Giants. So the Inferno Tower is basically a very good counter to all of that. Working my way up to level 8 Inferno Tower, and we're gonna be talking about the Zap now. So the Zap is also one of the very flexible cards in the game right now. It stuns units for 2 seconds. Not 2 seconds, but 0.5 seconds. Previously it was 1 second, but now it zaps and stuns units for 0.5 seconds. And what this will do is it'll give your tower time, or maybe you can even re-aggro Royal Giants. If you place down Inferno Tower too late, it can re-aggro Royal Giants and it will target your Inferno Tower. So it can also re-aggro Expos and re-aggro anything that targets troops basically. And we have the Fireball, last and not least. The Fireball is also one of the best cards in the game right now, because sadly my favorite spell, the Poison spell, unfortunately got nerfed, and I'm really bummed out about that. But now we are using the Fireball because it's, first of all, it's great against Minion Horde, Barbarians, what else? Musketeer, 3 Musketeers, and just basically things like that. So it's good. It's good against all those clumped up troops because of its area damage and that high damage, as you can see, 572. So they can bring the barbarians all the way down to where your tower can 2-shot or 1-shot them. So that's basically it, I guess, for my deck. I'm gonna put in the princess really quickly, and if you guys didn't notice, look at this. I have the graveyard, guys. I got it from a golden chest. I'm really hyped about that. Maybe I'll be making some graveyard videos in the future. But that's basically it, I guess. I have nothing really much to talk about anymore. So if you guys enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with your friends, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.